Hey guys, Thunder E here, and welcome to the war on Headphone Jacks. With me is the one and only, not some gadget guy, but I'm bringing back some audio guy.
Let's do it.
Yes.
Yeah, audio guy's cranky and mean. I like it.
Joining me is Mr. Juan Bagnell. How's it going, man?
It's going well. Got my coffee. I'm ready to chat some audio. I don't have any phones near me to do examples or demos with, so I might have to run back to my bookshelf real quick.
Yeah, please. I mean, I do. They're like right there.
We'll see what I can grab in arm's reach.
All right, cool. So there's a war on headphone jacks, guys. We started this argument for a while now, but earlier this year, the rumors that the iPhone 7 was going to lose its headphone port, and eventually we found out, yeah, that was true. We saw Motorola jump the gun with the Moto Z line right there. Thank you very much for showcasing that. First device this year, no, actually not the first device, but one of the devices, it comes with a dongle similar to the iPhone 7 that is USB Type-C to 3.5, and the iPhone has a Lightning to 3.5 as well. So we have all these new devices. There's, Apple, there's Motorola, there's Leco. Is it Leco? Yeah, Leco, yeah.
Leco,
sorry. Leco right there. And we have a few of these companies actually making the switch. And then, of course, last week, we got an article from Anantech and also a publication from the USB classification board, which we have the links for you guys down below, explaining the latest addition to USB 3.0 for full support for audio and all that beautifulness via the USB Type-C port. Now,
right.
Here's the thing. It all sounds nice and dandy in business terms to say, let's take out the port, because it does a couple of things. It creates more revenue for you by charging for accessories. You can also make new headphones. So literally, every company can decide to, I like my Bow & Wilkins, for instance. Bow & Wilkins can decide to make a P5 Lightning version and USB Type-C version, which means I could either buy that or I could buy a dongle, and they could give me a much better dongle, which they'll charge me more money for, that has either a built-in back or whatever the case may be. But the key part is they will make more money off you.
Well, and think about headphones or purchases that I don't think people are flipping nearly as often as they are their phones.
Yes.
Right. So if you invest in a really nice pair of headphones, I've even got from some of my older Bluetooth headphones, I've got my old Nokia BH905s. I love those things.
This is good. Yeah.
I still use those things. They're not very bass heavy, but great mids and highs. So, what incentive would I have had to flip a pair of headphones like that sooner, and so this is, I think, one of those ways that you can motivate your core demos to engage in new retail activity. If they were sitting on an old pair of Sennheisers or Bowers & Wilkins, or you had spent that money. Now you either need to get more money out of them for an adapter, or they're going to flip those headphones for USB or Lightning connectors.
Yeah, definitely so. And so before we even get in deeper, what do you think about the USB audio classification? Because we know what Apple has said, and from some tests we've seen out there, there's nothing special in terms of what they've done with audio off the Lightning port. So, have you seen anything different from the USB Type-C, USB 3.0 classification for audio? Because this affects Type-C as well as 3.1 regular.
Right. So, I mean, reading up on what Anantech was talking about, it doesn't seem like it's any much different than Apple's implementation and solution for Lightning audio. It's just this was the step that they needed to take to standardize. Because, for example, this dongle here for the Moto Z is unique to the Moto Z. If I plug it into any other USB-C port on any other phone, it doesn't output audio. The phone doesn't know what to do with this hardware attached to it. That is one of the ways that Apple has standardized, is that this adapter for Lightning has its own DAC built into the Lightning port. So any Lightning port device running iOS 10 knows what to do with this thing. So if USB-C is ever going to take off as any kind of audio delivery standard, they needed to standardize how that output was going to happen. And that's the news that we got from Anintech.
Yeah, no, definitely. And on that part, yes, it makes a lot of sense. But I think maybe we should just backtrack a little bit and try and explain to people, because we've had this argument with techies, regular folk, who have said that, lightning audio or USB Type-C audio from a port that charges your phone, let's just call it that, right. Is better than from a 3.5 jack, because it is digital and you can do so much more with it. Granted, the analog port has been there around for almost 100 years, right? Pretty much.
Well, the initial design for the phono port was developed in 1870. I don't know when the mini phono port was actually invented, but it was popularized it was really popularized in the 70s. As we started approaching the Walkman era, that's when we saw that port become extremely popular for consumer grade solutions.
Yes. And just to remind people, audio is analog. I'm not saying you can't have a digital expression. Just remember this.
This is what's frustrating about the way that these companies are sort of conflating terms like digital and analog. When we went from analog tape to digital video output, digital was way better. Audio doesn't work that way. You can't have a purely digital audio experience until we can plug some kind of cable directly into the brain.
Yes.
At some point, you need to vibrate the air to create waves of energy, which then interact with the tympanic membrane in your ear. That is an analog experience. So all audio equipment needs to have some step where we convert from a digital signal to analog force in the air, vibrations of air.
Mm-hmm.
And that is achieved through something that is literally called the digital to analog converter, the DAC or the DAC. And how powerful that DAC is based on an amp. So that once you convert from zeros and ones, the digital signal, to analog vibrations in air, there's one little step in the middle where you've created an electrical signal. Just like if you've ever seen how speakers work, you've got magnets and coils. Those magnets wiggle because of little tiny electrical signals. And so that electrical signal is so small when you convert it from a digital signal that you need to amplify that signal. And that's what the amp does, so that it can properly drive headphones, headsets, speakers, line inputs, all of that other fun stuff. So every single piece of audio equipment, no matter how digital it may claim to be, terminates with an analog output so that your ears can actually make sense of it. Your ears cannot make sense of a stream of zeros and ones. Digital audio out of the lightning port is basically the same thing as plugging a USB drive into your computer and transferring a file from the computer to your USB drive. You wouldn't transfer an MP3 file over to your thumb drive and say, wow, listen to that beautiful music. That's just a file transfer. That's exactly what Apple is doing with the lightning port. It's just transferring the digital information out of the lightning connector, and then the lightning connector, whatever's connected to it, has to make sense of that digital information to create an analog audio signal.
Yeah, so that's it. The end result of your audio, when I am listening to Juan right here, is an analog conversion. I mean,
it's vibrations in air. It's concussive force, and your ears make sense of that so that your brain can interpret those vibrations into speech and music and sound.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing. We're not saying that, having digital or using a port like lightning port is bad. What I'm at least I'm trying to express is that no company has given a reason, because if you look at the Anantech article, even Anantech says the companies have not stated exactly what are the pure benefits of going this way, other than streamlining internal components. So either one, quote unquote, making it cheaper, but we do know that port costs them almost nothing now in terms of, no, I must say it doesn't cost them, but it costs them.
Yeah, it's when we're talking about millions of units, let's say, it costs like $2. No, it doesn't. It wouldn't even cost.
Exactly.
I'm going to round up to $1 for all of the audio equipment that would need to be inside a phone to process headphone audio.
Yeah.
When we're talking about millions of units, then you are talking about millions of dollars. So I can appreciate that at scale, this stuff probably, does represent some kind of cost. I really think the motivation is more accessories on the back end.
Yeah.
And you can do that by sort of passing the buck, literally, on moving pieces out of your phone so that consumers are forced to then go and spend additional monies on other pieces of equipment to sort of attain the same quality or standard that we had when everything was built into the phone.
Yeah.
Any notion that this is about quality can easily be thrown out the window the second you plug your headphones into a phone like the HTC 10 or the LG V series phones.
Mm-hmm.
The LG V10 from last year with a Qualcomm 808 processor, how underpowered, utilizes an ESS DAC. ESS makes phenomenal audio equipment, and the DAC built into that phone is capable of generating frequencies of sound that dogs cannot hear out of the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. The headphone jack is not a determination of quality. That phone has a killer DAC and a fantastic amp capable of driving even professional headphones reasonably well. That is sort of evidence number one that this old jack, it's over 100 years old, is not holding us back in any way, shape, or form for improving audio quality. And so there was nothing holding Apple back from improving the DAC. And I think they actually use a pretty decent amp in the iPhone. I'm not gonna hammer them for the amp, but Apple was the gold standard when we all were sort of stuck at CD quality, 16-bit audio, and then they just sort of stayed there. There was no reason why they couldn't have improved their DAC to include support for 24-bit or even 32-bit audio. They just decided not to. CD quality is good enough for this $650 phone. Who could need more than that? Well, if you really do care about that high quality audiophile experience, you want to connect really nice headphones to your phone, you really want to process, using super high quality FLAC files or lossless files. Well, then you need the hardware to really process that signal. And Apple has just decided that they're not going to include that on the iPhone, nor are they going to include it on their adapter. Their adapter is actually a very small step down from the DAC and amp that were built into the iPhone 6S and the iPhone SE. Which is kind of funny. Like, you can go and pick up a $400 iPhone SE and have almost the same camera experience. It's almost as fast, gets slightly better battery life, and has better audio quality out of the headphone jack than the iPhone 7. It's just not water resistant.
So is that the better phone? I'm just saying, but
I'm not going to say better, but I'm looking at my year-end wrap-ups, and I actually think the iPhone SE is going to be my favorite Apple product of the year.
Okay. No, I mean, you state very good points. And, even to that point here, we have Wu-Tang Forever Disc 2. Remember, it's Disc 2. Says, he says something that even though a lot of people may not relate to, he says, good clean audio from a $1,000 headset is best heard from a dedicated DAP. A phone is insufficient to handle a 3.5mm jack. In a sense that you think about it, you have all these companies. I have here Bear Dynamics I forgot the model number. I think it's T1. No, sorry, T1 is what I just reviewed. That was great. Sorry, I'm going back to something that's too expensive for me. These headphones retailed for about $600, and I can easily plug it to. I have an amp next to my turntable, and I am getting clean, beautiful sound. And again, this is something that is that old. And if you, even just to relate it to something what people may even actually recognize, Nokia, about 10 years ago, used to do TV output through the 3.5mm jack. They could do that through that port. So, it's a very versatile port, and it's one that doesn't need to be taken out, because if you think about it, is it because you want to make phones thinner? And we now realize that a lot of people are going, well, the phones are too thin. I might break it. I'm still going to put it in the case anyway. Like, really, what's the point?
Yeah.
At this, we've got to that. And again, you're getting a smaller battery because of the size. And we know that battery technology in terms of the batteries themselves have not improved as much as, say, software optimization.
Well, and I mean, the iPhone 7 is again another point of evidence that that's not the case. You know, it doesn't really behoove Apple to make smaller devices than they already have, and the iPhone 7 is nearly identical in terms of hardware layout and dimensions from the iPhone 6s. Yeah. It pissed me off because, like, it's so close. My old bumper cases for the iPhone 6 and 6s would fit if they hadn't changed the sculpting around the camera sensor. That's it. That's the only significant hardware difference. And so the excuse is, well, because they removed the headphone jack, then Apple could put in a larger battery. That's not true. The cavity for where the headphone jack has been replaced by a barometric valve. It's a little baffle that fits in so that they get slightly more accurate barometric response when you're walking up and down stairs. This is a novel little piece of hardware. And so there's also a vent, I think, to help equalize pressure for when the phone is submerged underwater. Again, that's nifty, but no other water resistant phone has required this kind of hardware. And no other fairly accurate barometric sensing hardware has required this hardware. So if I had my pick between ever so slightly more accurate barometric response and a valve to help equalize pressure when the phone is underwater versus a headphone jack, I would take the headphone jack.
Okay, so you're telling me that they took out a cheap port to put in two new things that probably cost more money.
I mean, that's kind of the thing. You know, we're talking about Apple as a premium brand, and this is what they've decided is going to go into their flagship product. Then, yeah, I mean, that's the compromise that they've made. Again, also sort of encroaching in on that space, and I don't know if it's directly related to the space necessary for a headphone jack, but the Taptic engine, the vibration motor, which is actually really nice on the iPhone 7, does also start to fill up some of that cavity too. So that could also be part of it. Like, you get to that end and you say, like, well, if Taptic engine is going to be wider and that's going to start pushing into the space for the headphone jack, what else can we put here that will improve other things on the phone? And so they made that choice sort of after the fact. It could just be motivated by, we've got 3D touch and we've got the home button that are all now going to be force feedback vibration motor. That could also be contributing to the decision as to what else went in the headphone cavity. But it's still, you know, that we didn't really get any of those other space-saving situations. The phone didn't get thinner, the battery got bigger, but the battery capacity got larger in roughly the same amount of space. And then the other things that we got are benefits, but benefits that I would happily trade for better direct headphone audio.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's definitely true. Now, you have a lot of people some people have stated in the chat, Bluetooth audio. How about we move there? There are a couple of things I want to mention about Bluetooth audio in terms of quality. First of all, it's just not the same as just plugging it directly, because we have Bluetooth, what, 4.1, 4.2?
So let's give Bluetooth the best benefit of the doubt on Bluetooth 4 with aptX.
Yes.
That seems to be the killer response that a lot of people are going to throw out. And when we really look at what that compression, is it aptX? Yeah, aptX.
aptX, yeah.
When we really look at what that style of compression delivers, the best we can find in terms of numbers is that it achieves something akin to CD quality output, which is pretty good, considering Bluetooth has pretty miserable bandwidth for high quality, any type of high quality streaming. I mean, think about how long it takes to send a photo over Bluetooth. Then think about what it takes to send a really true lossless high quality audio signal over a wireless standard. And we can imagine why we're dealing with
doing that over a continuous period of time, especially
and without dropouts, without interruptions. You don't crouch with the phone in your back pocket and then suddenly can't hear anything. That's why we still don't consider aptX to be of the same grade as a nice dedicated high quality headphone audio connection. Wired connection. It's the same thing with like Wi-Fi. You go to a LAN party, you're not the jerk out there with your own wireless router. You connect directly to some kind of router because a cabled connection is better. We understand this with Ethernet. Why are we pretending that Bluetooth can somehow deliver the same quality of signal and the same consistency of signal. It's just not there. Hopefully Bluetooth 5 can address some of the quality. I'll still be curious to see whether or not they can do anything on a mobile device to fully answer the consistency of signal.
Oh, then how about, say, taking the Sonos route and going Wi-Fi? Now, I mean, we you know, you listen to Sonos soundbar. I mean, Wi-Fi has the capability of handling that, and especially at home, I think that works well. But I don't know how. First of all, Wi-Fi continuously on your battery life. That's just one. Forget anything else. Just, you know, you listening to audio that way. The second part also is, you know, would users want to use that connection process? I mean, Bluetooth, I think. Well, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth is probably the same connection process in terms of speed.
You know, actually, I think it's just a matter of convenience. Bluetooth is really convenient. Bluetooth is way more convenient than messing around with cables and adapters. So, I mean, when we look at some really high quality Bluetooth solutions, I'm a Sennheiser whore. So I love throwing out some of those Sennies, like the Momentums over Bluetooth. They sound really good. I'm not going to compare them though to some really nice, you know, open back mixing headphones, monitors. That connect directly into my somewhat expensive computer audio interface and then output to another amp. You know, like that's a different listening experience. So I think Bluetooth wins over Wi-Fi for the convenience factor, simply because Wi-Fi still hasn't gotten smart enough about point to point.
Yes.
So if you connect Wi-Fi audio equipment to your phone can't then surf the internet over Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
it's the same problem with like those Wi-Fi cameras. You know, like you connect your phone to a camera over Wi-Fi, and you have no data. You're done. You have to disconnect Wi-Fi before you get data again. And now our phones are getting smart enough where they'll pop up and say, hey, there's no internet connected to this Wi-Fi. Do you want me to disconnect? And you're like, no, I want you to stay connected to the camera because I'm using you as a viewfinder. Audio would be just as frustrating an experience if we moved over there. So, I mean, our phones, and kind of going back to Wu-Tang Forever Disc 2, you know, your audio signal is only as good as what's connected to that port. The port doesn't matter. But there is also the convenience factor. So while we're talking about a higher quality listening experience, we're sort of acknowledging that it is coming with the compromise of being attached to a mobile device. That still doesn't mean I shouldn't want or expect the highest possible quality audio experience that we can generate when we're talking about the premium end of the smartphone market. You know, there are a number of $400 phones, which gets us really close. If I'm spending more than $400 on a phone, I expect there to be reasons why I'm spending that much money on a phone. And one of the things I turn to is how good is the audio? I want it to be as good as it possibly can be.
No, I definitely agree. And, you know, it's sad that the two top, I'm not saying they don't have good DACs in there, but I'm saying that looking at LG and HTC, where the listening experience is premium. So whenever I do my headphone reviews, I plug it into my HTC 10 because, and I'll give you a very simple example. If you guys can bear with me for 1 second, I'm just going to grab a pair of headphones. I just wanted to explain something to you guys. So if you can just quickly, you know,
I'll vamp. And so then also we've been going through and trying to improve the testing on Pocket Now reviews. And so it's a multifaceted experience. We have to listen to a ton of music. We then connect as a line output, and then we literally shove microphones into a pair of headphones just to see what that output looks like. And it takes a long time to put all that together just so that we can have a minute piece of a longer review to talk about the headphone audio, or just the audio in general, because even the speaker audio requires some discussion also.
So correct me if I'm wrong, this has a 24-bit DAC in here, right?
Actually, I believe the HTC 10 can output 32-bit audio.
Okay.
But I didn't test it under those conditions. I only just started testing. So Jaime has the HTC 10, and I'm pissed off because it's not like he's doing anything with it. He's such a Samsung nerd.
You should get it back from me. So this is 24, and my Samsung I believe Samsung is 16, if I'm not mistaken.
No, Samsung will also output a 24-bit signal.
Okay, yeah. But this one of the things I think what HTC has done with the DAC implementation there, especially, this is one thing that a lot of people notice with headphones. You plug in a pair of headphones into your phone, and some headphones you go, oh, I got to increase the audio because first of all, everything sounds really dampened, lower, and for you to get the best output out of it, you want to, you almost have to take it about 75%.
Yeah.
So this is almost non-scientific, but it's almost a simple way of me gauging the audio of both phones. I take my Galaxy S7 Edge here, and I have these pair of headphones. I cannot state the name, but I can show it. They're a pair of earbuds, and they're about $900 or $1,000.
Right.
And
like I'm right now, I'm connected to $700 in-ear monitors. So.
Exactly. And
to do a hangout on air.
I know. and the idea is still it's meant for the listening experience on a smartphone. Of course, using a DAC would be most preferable, like a portable DAC where you can, of course, customize and, amplify it. I plug it into my Galaxy S7. I have to increase my volume to about 70%. Usually your phone starts at 50. I plug it into this bad boy. I drop my volume down to 40.
Yeah.
Just because at that point I'm getting a full range and I can hear everything. The thing about, especially when you're, it's a combination with audio. I think that's where the users tend to, it gets lost in the message because to getting good audio, there's so many things, good headphones, good audio source, and good audio file. So whether you're using FLAC, lossless files, whether you have a comparable DAC in your device, and also if you have good headphones. But the fact that with that combination experience and the difference here in switching is actually just the phones, because the files are the same and the headphone is the same, puts in point the importance of having better audio production from your devices, be it an iPhone, be a Samsung device, be any device that you pick up, especially at that price range. So I'm very pleased with HTC and LG, even though they pissed me off with the V20 on the fact that, look, if you're paying premium, and I think that's what's lost here in this whole argument, right? I can, in a sense, right, I can understand taking away the port at a $400 or cheaper level. You say you want to cut costs, that is even a good argument. But if I'm paying at $645 and up, then I want everything because I'm paying for a premium device.
Right.
Then premium argument comes in.
But we know of Apple of late is sort of, they will charge what the market can bear. They're not basing pricing on what does it cost to manufacture and what does it cost to do this kind of research and R&D and everything else. And I don't mean this as a slight as Apple. I think this is a shrewd business decision. And that's who we have at the lead of Apple right now. Tim Cook is a phenomenal operations guy. And so he's looking at those bottom lines and how he can supply as much value to shareholders. And that's what we've ended up with, is a solution which benefits that chain of retail. When when we're looking at some of these other phones, you brought up the HTC 10. I'm a big fan of the V series LG phones, the V10 and the V20. I'm glad you brought this up, because when we're talking about things like, the headphone output, and you're saying like, I connect these nicer headphones to my Samsung and I've got to crank the volume a lot. Then I move those headphones over. Like if I use these earbuds on a V10, if I'm above like 30% of the V10's output, it's painful. It's that loud.
Oh man, I can't wait to try that quad DAC on that bad boy,
dude. So I mean, the V20, and there are a couple things about the V20 which are like in many ways, because I don't want to spoil the review, but in many ways the V20 might be a lateral move, which is still really good. There are some things that are better. There are some things which I'm a little concerned about, but we'll get into that more when we can actually review a final. Mine is still where is it? Mine is still pre-release. So we're not using this to do all of our final in-depth detailed testing on the camera or the headphone jack. LG's still been radio silent about when we'll get a proper retail release unit. But anyway, getting back to the volume argument. When it comes to audio, if you have to drive near the maximum of a piece of hardware's total output, you logarithmically become less efficient as you get near that maximum. And so on things like microphone preamps and proper monitors, if you really crank, you'll start to hear a lot more noise when nothing is being recorded, because that system is being driven near its maximum. If that happens on multi-$1,000 pieces of equipment, you can only imagine what's happening to your signal when you're dealing with a mobile device. As you start nearing that maximum, nearing that peak, if you're working that inefficiently, things like your noise floor, your frequency response, they all start becoming affected by what's happening. So some people might look at that and say like, oh, well, if I can only listen to 30%, what am I paying for? It's not like I'm using all of the capability of the headphone jack. I'm only using 30% of the headphone jack from the V20. That's actually a good thing. That you're not able to listen up near that maximum. That means you're being fed an even higher quality audio signal per the volume that you're listening at. And again, it's one of those things where once you pair it with a good pair of earbuds or a good pair of headphones, you can minimize the amount of background noise leaking into your ears around you. It's another reason why I hate the earpods. The earpod drivers are actually pretty good, but they have zero seal around my ear canal, which means I know I have to listen louder to overcome the noise around me, which that concussive force. So comparatively, it sounds just as loud as earbuds that are plugged into my ears, but it's more actual force that's hitting my eardrum, which means I'm damaging my ears faster over time. I think they're a terrible design in this day and age. And there are other solutions if you want to be able to hear things around you from sport earbuds, or the ability to actually plug up the ear canal for passive noise reduction.
Yeah, comply foam earbuds.
Exactly. I mean, so you've got foam, you've got vented, you've got bone conduction. I'm a huge fan, if you're working out outside, of going to something like aftershocks.
Yeah.
So it's just, you're vibrating your skull to listen to your audio, and your ears are completely exposed to the world around you. So you can hear that bus that's about to turn you into street pizza. Those types of situations, again, there's a lot of misinformation out there, but when we're talking about quality, those other factors like the volume that you listen at, if your phone can drive a really high quality signal at an appropriate loudness level to a nice pair of earbuds, and you're not maxing the phone's volume out, then you're in much better shape than if you're plugging into something that you need to crank it to 100, because then your noise, your distortion, all of those things go up too.
Yeah. One thing, if anyone has a HC 10, definitely use the tuning module that they have for each headphones. Granted, it doesn't, each headphone you try and tune doesn't differ as much, but what I think you should do is try and gauge your hearing, because you tune on different frequencies, and you can see, you will definitely notice that each ear is different. In terms of how you pick up sound. Like, my right is literally much better than my left ear. I mean, it's scary that the distance in terms of listening to different frequencies. But if you have HC 10, definitely try that out, because I think it will just give you a better appreciation of audio itself. Now, it's not, I won't call it a scientific way of tuning headphones or anything like that, but no. I think it's just a nice representation of saying, okay, these are different sound levels, and this gives you a better understanding. So when you start listening to music off your device, you go, okay, I don't need to crank it up, number one, because the 10 at least doesn't afford you that luxury of killing your eardrums, but but at least you get a good appreciation. I think
actually, I think most phones have. I mean, we've got Thoyo in the live chat, and I remember this. The Galaxy S7 also has sort of a basic tuning EQ setting that you can do, and then the V10 and V20 also have volume sliders per ear. So what you can do is at the operating system level, you can say, because I actually do this when I'm just sort of listening to music, not when I'm testing. My left ear is better than my right ear. I can hear about a kilohertz higher in my left ear than I can in my right ear. So
can I have your left ear? Because my right
like I was gonna say, between the two of us, like we have one complete set of ears. And actually that's something for anyone who's out there who's interested in sort of learning a little bit more about what affects audio quality. The first thing I would recommend doing is giving yourself a hearing test, seeing how high you can hear. I'm in my mid-30s, And it's actually kind of a big deal to me that I can still hear above 17K in my left ear. That's that, what did they call that ringtone that only kids could hear? It was like Hornet or Cricket or something like that. I don't remember. It started out, it was a really funny story. There was this one shop in the UK that started blasting this ultra high frequency sound to annoy kids. You know, like kids were just loitering around his shop. So he started blasting out this like cricket sound that really, once you're getting a little bit older, you start losing your high frequency hearing. And so for young people, like it was supposed to annoy them, go away. Kids found out about it and then started using that for their devices to send alerts to each other so that their teachers couldn't hear these cricket ringtones and cricket sounds, but that anyone with younger ears that hadn't blasted their hearing out from going to too many concerts could hear these like above 17 kilohertz audio frequency samples. So to give yourself a hearing test, in my right ear, I'm below 16K. So there's a large disparity between my left ear and my right ear as to what frequencies of sound I can actually perceive and then actually hear on top of that.
Yeah, I think I killed mine early from I was not an audiophile till about maybe 7 years ago.
Well, and I got into recording late in high school, and at that point I had already been like, I would go to warehouse parties out in the middle of, you know, like the industrial section of Albuquerque, and like just stand in front of giant subwoofers and not wear any hearing protection.
Yeah.
So it's amazing to me that I still have anything left, let alone you'd leave the party at night and like you'd hear woo for like hours afterwards, like, oh yeah, I've got that whining, you're like not realizing that was me literally killing my ears.
I agree the same way. I used to just crank my audio up, and I have to think, I can't remember the fan's name, but this is when I just started reviewing, and he asked me to review a pair of headphones from I think it's Sweden or Norway, called Jays. They have the VJs, the UJs, they're all like, you know, JYS. With a letter in front. And for some reason, that's what just got me started. And I was like, these are better than my earpods. And I started researching and then trying different headphones. And then I got Beats, and I was like, okay, this is just too much bass. And, you know, it was that path that took to get me all these headphones behind you.
Well, and for me, it was spending, because I've been recording for over 15 years now. And most of it's spoken word. So you really want to be able to pick up the detail and the nuance of a human's voice opposite a mic that makes them sound good. And if you don't have the right pairing, you're not getting those textural differences that really kind of help a recording stand out. And so that was like, it was pretty early into college. It's like, I've got to stop being an idiot. You know, like if I roll up to anything where I think stuff might be loud, I've got a pair of ear protection earplugs with me just to help maintain. And it's funny because now even when I'm out and about and something's loud, like I will take my headphones off and put them on my daughter, not with anything playing, but, you know, like, you know, we went out to a park and there was this loud music in the park thing going on. And so just a pair of headphones passively around her head just to kind of block some of the sound that's going into her ears. I want her to stay fresh so that she can abuse her ears however she wants later in life.
Yeah, no, definitely. You know, it's just, it is true, because it's one of those things where even when I'm recording audio and editing audio, and, you know, I found out a lot of people will complain that it was too low. I set my audio is all set at 50%, everything from down from like just the main audio on a PC to software. And, you know, especially if you're using Premiere Pro, you can see, you know, it's a nice little guided meter on the side that tells you you're going too far. Like you can, you know, the red just pops up. You're like, you need to cut it down. But I've just noticed that. I record that and people will say it's still too low. And I'm like, okay, either I'm deaf or people are not. I mean, I don't know what's going on right now. Maybe just people can't hear that well. But at least, you know, take some of this advice, you know, from Mr. Juan Bagnell. Treat your ears with some love, you know, because you're definitely gonna need it. But just before we round up, I know we've kind of veered a little bit away. We're still talking about audio here, though. I think, I mean, we know that the headphone jack is eventually going to disappear. I mean, as much as we fight this, it's going to go.
Well, and what I expect will happen over the next couple of years is that the phono jack is going to become the purview of professionals.
Yeah.
Because I do not envision a near-term future where I walk into a recording studio and see a headphone mixer with USB ports on it.
No.
I don't believe that's going to happen, because we all need to be on the same page and we all need to be listening to the same signals. And actually, USB is kind of a terrible solution for quickly acclimating everybody to the same quality experience when we're all trying to like listen really closely to very minute differences.
And also, again,
what's going on.
You have to remember studios, the expense of these equipments. You know, you go to a recording studio, the dollar value of everything in there, especially, you know, just forget it, just the headphones alone is enough for you to say we're not changing this bad boy for a while.
I mean, even like reasonably priced Sony, because they're really popular in LA, are the Sony MDRs. Those are still between $100 and $300 headphones. So when you have, it's not that you bought one pair, it's that studio probably has somewhere between 10 or maybe more pairs of headphones that they need to be able to use all at the same time. So I seriously don't see USB taking over there. But it's kind of like, you know, vinyl is becoming niche for collectors, but actually vinyl sales are on the rise right now because people are looking for a specific kind of music experience. The general mass market consumer experience is going to be served fine by Lightning connector and USB C audio, but I'm a little less angsty about USB-C than I am Lightning, because once we have sort of a proper accepted standard for how audio comes out of USB-C, investing in USB-C means I can use it on everything but an iPhone or an iPad. I can use it on any Android device. If Microsoft ever gets another Windows Phone device, we'll be able to use it there too. I can even plug that into a MacBook. I have no issues with USB-C for a consumer standard because it will actually be a fairly broad standard. If I invest in Lightning connector audio, I can't move those headphones from an iPhone or an iPad to a MacBook. Or an iMac or a Mac Pro. All of that's dead. All of that's gone. And I know that Apple is looking at devaluing all of that kind of hardware, but I'll be surprised if we see a new MacBook with a Lightning port just for the audio. I think that's uncharacteristic of where Apple is going and trying to reduce the number of ports on their devices. Instead, I think we might be likely to see some other kind of adapter or dongle that you then have to plug into your MacBook, which terminates in a female Lightning connector, so you can plug in your earpods. That to me seems like a silly solution for getting around this problem. So obviously what you should do instead is buy a $160 pair of AirPods, and then they're just connected to your iTunes account so that you can move over Bluetooth from your phone to your MacBook. And isn't that so much better? And again, I think that's a good solution for a small number of people. And I think it's a terrible solution for many, many more people in the community who were used to that. One of the benefits of buying an iPhone was that you got a pair of headphones in the box that you could use on any device you wanted. That's part of the cost of an iPhone. Now those headphones are locked specifically to your iPhone or your iPad, and that's it.
Definitely. The last point I wanted to make, but I think I just wanted to ask if you've tried this headphones quickly. This is from Kevin Osborne. He says, have we tried the Parrot Zip?
Oh, I've not heard anything from Parrot. I actually have not put my ears into anything from Parrot. So that's something that I'm actually trying to look at rectifying soon. My background is in recording, and I wouldn't consider myself an audiophile, but I am something of an audio snob. It's only been recently. It's only been over the last, I would say, 2 years of reviewing technology products that I've actually started trying to branch out into more consumer audio solutions. I'm a really big fan of buying recording studio monitors, trying to find headphones that have as flat an EQ as possible. That they often sound, the headphones themselves often produce something of a cold sound. Some people might say it's less bass heavy. It doesn't have quite the same like tweak to the EQ. Like Beats are notorious for really juicing up the color of your audio. And so that sounds really good. But to me, it's kind of like the Pepsi challenge. When you listen to them for a short period of time, just like the Pepsi challenge, you take a little sip of Pepsi. It's like, oh, it's so sweet. It's delicious. It's great. But when you drink an entire bottle of Pepsi, people actually preferred Coke because Coke wasn't as syrupy sweet. That's kind of how I look at beats. Beats, when you throw them on your ears for the very first time for that initial burst, if you get something like a really hot EDM track, some really well mixed hip hop, or even some really fat jazz, like really honking saxophone jazz.
Yeah.
They sound great for that initial burst of listening. But over time, I find them to be kind of irritating in how they affect and manipulate sound.
Yeah. You still there, Juan?
Did you lose my video?
Yes, your video.
Okay, I think I figured this out. So someone just tried to call, and my Hangouts tried to squish it over. Let me see if I can turn this off.
Okay.
And let me see if I can come back. No, I don't think my webcam's gonna let me come back. So I think you're just gonna be stuck with Optimus Prime.
No problem. I was gonna say one of the things that I think people should recognize when getting headphones is, first of all, no offense to a lot of the new young tech companies who are making headphones, even people like Parrot, but I would say start with traditional names. Start with names that have been in the business, and also look at price points. Because the price points you're looking at driver quality and also where you hit. When you do headphones between $150 to $200, they all kind of sound similar. I mean, you find a few that have a little difference here and there, but when you move past that range, you get to people like your Bear Dynamics, Byron Wilkins, all those kind of traditional companies, Focal, that they try to bring in their own little flair. So, for instance, the Bang & Olufsen H7 is just a little bit bassier. Not bassier, sorry. If they've got higher mids, the mids are tuned a little bit higher, and they have purposely said that. They were like, look, we're trying to aim for a certain bracket. We went in to make it flat, but we said, you know what, let's try and just tune certain things. And you find out with a lot of their headphones in that range, because these companies make high-end headphones that are usually neutral across the board, because you're listening to, you're listening to stuff off either vinyl, or you've got a nice setup at home and you don't want to mess with, the sound by tuning the headphones either way.
Right.
So I think that's what you need to look at in terms of getting audio, because you can spend, look, some people may say it's too much money, but if you spend $300, $350 on a pair of Bear Dynamics, Bang & Olufsen, Sennheisers, whatever they are, trust me, you will use those headphones for quite a while.
Well, and also, I mean, if people are curious about sort of experimenting and starting this process, I would really recommend starting with recording headphone monitors. And there are some really great companies that I really respect. I still love Sony's professional gear. I like Audio-Technica. I like AKG. I love Sennheiser. Those are names in the recording industry that are still very well respected today for producing consistent hardware. Like the HD25s that I listen to have been around.
Great.
Well, and they've been around for, I want to say that design of headphone has been around for something like 30 or 40 years, almost completely unchanged. And so, what's funny is, like, you ever heard that thing, you've got a mop and you replace the mop head, and then then the mop stick, the broomstick on your mop starts to, get all splintered. So you replace that. Do you really have the same mop? No, you've actually created a new mop, but you've replaced each piece by part. The HD25s were famous for being able to replace everything on them: individual ear cups, the pads, the cabling, the headband, the padding on the headband. And so the HD25s that I have are over 10 years old. They're not the same HD25s. Over time, I have replaced little bits here and there to keep them looking and performing well, from the cabling to the ear cups. So those are, I want to say, in the $250 ballpark. But even stepping down to around the $100 mark, really what we're sacrificing at that point is some notion of style. That you don't have the right logo, that they don't come in fun, fancy colors. If you pick up a $100 pair of Sennheiser HD 558s, they're probably going to be about $100, Or if you go with HD 280 Pros, again, probably around $100, and they're just going to look like plain black cans. They're not going to be fancy looking, but you're going to have a very reasonable audio listening experience, which is focused on accuracy. So you're really listening to what the producers intended this music to sound like, as opposed to trying to make it as colorful or as juicy as you possibly can. And that also, again, I mean, some people are like, oh, well, now I don't like the sound of this band as much. And you can be like, well, it's probably because they suck.
No, it's very true. I think one of the things that a lot of people will find out when you switch to a better audio experience is what you're actually listening to. You know, I love listening to movie thematic soundtracks. You know, I love to listen to Hans Zimmer's my favorite, because everybody says Hans Zimmer's all about the drums, but you hear so much more in his music, especially the one that's most underappreciated is for Interstellar. There's so many different sounds you can hear. It's almost like I think there's a lot of use of no accordion. Sorry, what's the piano in cathedrals? What are they called again?
Oh, like an organ?
Yeah, organ.
Like
yeah,
church organ.
Yeah, church organ. Yeah, there's a lot of that sound in there, but you hear a lot more. And then you get a little appreciation. You know, it's one of those weird things where if it's the first time you put on some good headphones, you have a good setup, and you listen, you're like, wait, did I just hear like a ping in the back of my, wait, okay, yeah, I did. There's pinging in this song? Okay.
You know what? I mean, like they aren't the best mix, but I had the same experience when the Beatles remasters came out. Because they cleaned up just basically a lot of the tape hiss and background noise from a lot of those recordings. And I'm listening to Hard Day's Night, and I'm listening to Ringo's drum work, and you're like, holy crap, like Ringo is actually not only a competent, but he's a really good drummer. I mean, people always would make fun of Ringo as being sort of the weak link of the Beatles. And then you think back, well, back then when they mic'd a drum kit, it was literally just like 1 or 2 microphones for the entire drum kit. We didn't have this way to multi-track 20 different mics all over the drum kit to catch every little nuance of the drum. We weighted that recording against the bass guitar as the rhythm section, and then the drums just sort of filled in the background. So when you clean up a lot of that mess surrounding where Ringo was, he was really subtle and detailed at complementing what the guitarists were doing. And you wouldn't have been able to hear that from those old 60s recordings on shitty headphones. You step up to cleaning up those recordings, and you listen through some nice headphones, and suddenly you can hear clarity and detail around that performance that you never would have heard before.
No, it is so true. I remember listening to I think it was Beat It or Billie Jean. AKG had the Quincy Jones. They had like 1,000 something pair of headphones. And I mean, they added a subtle gimmick of saying Quincy wanted headphones he could tune like he was in the studio.
Right.
Which it's okay, but the audio quality, I'm a big Michael Jackson fan, but I'm listening to this and I could hear him breathe to take the notes. And then for some it may sound silly, but when you hear his breathing, you know how well he does it so he can continue the notes and change notes as he's singing. And I'm like, okay, no, that is just not, I mean, that is sick. Because it gives you more of a depth of just either how good that musician is or how they suck, like you mentioned earlier, and also how good they sound, because and it wasn't like I heard him go that loud, but it was more
no, but you can, there's a presence there, and I had the same problem with early Coldplay albums are actually not very well mixed in my opinion, and you can hear a lot of like I can't remember the singer's name, Chris Martin.
Yeah, Chris Martin.
Anyway, the lead singer of Coldplay, where you could hear like these mouth noises around his breathing that weren't ever filtered out. And it's like when you're really like, once you hear it, you can't unhear it. So even when I'm listening on like my sort of regular car audio system, I'm sort of replacing where those mouth noises and mouth breathing sounds are, even though I can't really hear them on my car.
Your brain has mapped them in.
Exactly. That's where that mouth click would be in the song Yellow. Like it's just such a it can really ruin you for a lot of tracks. And then to the same token, I love testing audio equipment using the album of The Blue Color of the Sky by OK Go, because I think it's mixed way too loud. Like they are limiting and peaking everything nearly to death on that album. So if a phone starts distorting on that album, then that kind of has become a test for me. Like, can this device really hold on to over-processed audio signals? And if it can, then I think you've got something kind of special there. So like an LG V10 does better than, say, like a OnePlus 3, for example. OnePlus 3 actually has some really good, they did something with their amp, because the amp on the OnePlus 3 is actually pretty decent. But the OnePlus 3 is way more prone to distorting over-processed signals than an HTC 10 would be. And so that becomes the safety net, is the higher quality hardware on an HTC 10 or a V10 helps rein in even when producers and mixers over-process their audio too.
Oh, no, definitely. Yeah, I just want to say, I know we've kind of, we've just gone into an audio discussion now. I want to thank everyone for chiming in. I think we should just, we can end now, because at this point we could probably start talking about different tracks and listening,
like our favorite albums and stuff,
and all that fun stuff. But hopefully you guys got some good information on this. I wanted to ask you, this is the final question. So what's the best solution for users that feel that the audio jack is going away, and what can they do to get some really good audio? What are the options? We know Bluetooth is one. We hopefully it gets better. We hope it gets better. But also what can they do on the interim? Because this is something that's going to change as we move. Who knows? Maybe Samsung takes the jack off next year.
I mean, I really do expect that more companies are going to follow this lead. I think it makes too much sense from a business standpoint to follow what Apple has done in this regard. So Bluetooth easily wins for the convenience factor. As long as your phone supports aptX and you have headphones that support aptX, you have a pretty reasonable listening experience if you spend a little cash on a Bluetooth solution. When the USB-C audio standard really does start propagating into consumer-facing solutions, I think one of the best ideas for people would be to look at investing in some kind of nice amp. You can get these smartphone DACs that live outside of your phone. But I have a Sennheiser clip mic for my iPhone, which has a tiny little signal processor from Apogee on it. And I'm hoping that we'll see something similar to that for output. Yeah. So it doesn't add any considerable bulk. It will have to be bigger than Apple's solution to include a higher quality, properly shielded DAC and amp into something small. But I'm hoping we'll see something like that where you can normalize the headphone experience for yourself. And I'm hoping we'll see something like that in the next year or two, so that you can buy that once and then plug it into anything with USB-C.
Yeah.
So you can move it directly from your phone to your computer. And if you have a nice pair of headphones with a 3.5 millimeter jack, you just get some rubber bands, tie that stuff together. And so it's always just connected to the end of your headphones, and you don't have to worry about swapping it, or that it's not prohibitively expensive. So maybe you can buy a couple of those kinds of adapters to kind of keep that going. But eventually we will be looking at some kind of USB-C solution. I just like the idea of normalizing it. So it doesn't matter what device you use. If you upgrade from a Galaxy S9 to a Galaxy S10, you can then still continue to move your USB-C headphone adapter from device to device.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. I mean, I'm one of those where I get it. I understand the business aspect of it. I'm bummed out, but I would like to see the normalization of standard with USB-C. I also would love to see a DAC, as you mentioned, from someone, because my DAC will become useless because it's basically a 3.5 mm jack anyway. So I would like to see some.
I would look at the traditional recording companies again. I think that's going to be a value add that, Apogee has gotten really into the digital recording space for consumers. Like Apogee make a bunch of products. Blue microphones. I think they might be likely to introduce some kind of.
Yeah, I definitely agree, because they do have Audio Technica. They do have is it the Lola or which one that has the built-in DAC into the headphone? Yeah. The headphone, that series headphone was not comfortable. But man, the amp quality was good. The amp in there with the amp, it was Very nice.
So I mean, now would be the right time to just to start getting a lay of the land on what companies are innovating in this space.
Yeah.
And off the top of my head, we're seeing good work from Audio-Technica, from Blue, from Apogee. Focusrite, I think, is making some great computer hardware, which could then translate into some good mobile hardware.
Yeah.
Those are the types of companies we want to put a little pressure on to fulfill solutions for us moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Juan Bagnell. Where can people find you? I was going to mention your lower third. I know where it is, but if you can.
This is so frustrating. Yeah, that Google Hangout call that I got just wrecked everything. I'm gonna have to remember to turn off like everything on my PC when we do this kind of stuff. You can find me on. I'm the one of the gearheads at pocketnow.com. So youtube.com/pocketnow. My own channel is youtube.com/Juan Bagnell, or you can find it by searching for Some Gadget Guy. And then on Twitter and Instagram and around the web, I am Some Gadget Guy. Some Audio Guy still exists, but he now mostly talks about casting. So like voiceover performances and auditions and how Hollywood works. It's a little less about the recording technology these days.
Well, thank you very much for joining. Hopefully you guys found something, interesting, as well as got some information on this. I just have to say, this was fun. Even though the title says the war in headphone jacks, we didn't get too crazy here, guys. So.
Well, and again, it's just acknowledging changes are coming, and how can we best sort of prepare for maintaining the same quality of experience we already have.
Yeah, definitely. So if you have any more questions or comments, definitely leave it down in the comment section of this video. We will come back and answer them. If you're looking for headphones, if you're trying to understand the listening experience and you need some help, drop those comments there. We'll gladly answer them for you and give you our best tips. So thank you very much, guys. Definitely follow Some Gadget Guy on Twitter. It is Some Gadget Guy, and also check out his stuff, as well as also us here. It's Boored at Work on YouTube and also on Twitter. Thank you very much, and always enjoy your entertainment.
Bam.